Thank you very much staying with us for the third webinar of today. Still, those webinars here were possible because we have a Nordic Baltic beekeeper advisor meeting, and we asked three of them to make a talk for us today. And until now, it has been very exciting and very good talks. And the third talk is going to be very exciting as well. This is really our friends from Latvia who has been working with pollen for many years, bee products, and working with beebread in the bee colonies, how to extract that. And we have here Valters Brusbardis from the Latvian Beekeeper Association who will tell us about that. So Walter, please start your talk. Thank you very much for coming.
Hello everyone. Many thanks Fleming for introducing me. And yeah, today I'd like to share experience in the production of beebrad we have in Latvia. And you know, we produce beebrad in Latvia already for more than 20 years. And I would say that it is some kind of success for us. But let's start by a quick introduction. Every bee colony produces beebrad, and beebrad is definitely produced from bee pollen. So bees collect bee pollen in nature. They forage on plants and they bring this product into the colony, and it is really highly nutritional value for bees from this product. It supports bees with proteins, lipids, amino acids, vitamins, minerals, carbohydrates, but there is one bad thing with the fresh pollen. They're also very attractive for fungi and for molds, so there's no way for bees to start in a colony as a fresh product. So that's what bees are doing. They are transferring bee pollen, fresh bee pollen, into beebrad. So beebrad is made from pollen by fermentation and by help of lactic acid bacteria, and they do it, and it takes several weeks for bees to ferment into beebrad. So, as I marked previously, every colony produces beebrad, and that's important for a bee colony. But let's look at practical beekeeping. So only a small amount of beekeepers produce beebrad and sell it as a product to consumers. I would say that most of beekeepers in Scandinavia and Baltic countries, they simply throw it out as a waste. I mean beebrad. Our situation in Latvia is a bit different, as I marked previously. So we produce beebrad already for 20 years, and our consumers are familiar with this product. And it is almost possible. It's also possible to buy this product in the supermarkets. And here's on the right-hand side, there's a picture from supermarket in Latvia. There's a product, beebrad. It is sold in a supermarket, in the Rimi supermarket. It's Scandinavian supermarket, and so almost in every supermarket, consumers can buy beebrad and also bee pollen. So as you can see, price is also quite high for this product. It costs €5.79 per 80 grams. So the price of beebrad in Latvia is almost €60 per kilo. Let's go further, and let's switch to equipment which is necessary for production of beebrad. So there is no way to produce beebrad without appropriate equipment, and so there's a need for beebrad threshing machine. In Latvia, we have one producer who is producing threshing machine. You can see it on the left hand side. It's produced in Latvia. It's a pretty simple machine. but it has one good thing compared to other products. It allows to control thresholding time. So, for example, if beekeeper wants to threshold the product for, let's say, for 3 or 5 or 10 seconds, it can be controlled. So, on the right-hand side, you can see some other products. Those products are produced by a commercial producer. It's called Eller. It's a Lithuanian company. They produce equipment and machines for production of beebread. On top, you can see a small scale machine which can be used for a small scale production, but it works nicely. Also in Latvia, several beekeepers use it, and feedback is quite positive. It is also equipped by sieving device, which allows to produce a clean product. And on the bottom part, you can see another product, which is a commercial machine for production of beebread. It is quite expensive. It costs around 2,500 euros, but it is with high capacity equipment, which allows to produce large quantities of beebread. So this is the first step if some of beekeepers want to produce beebread. So there's really need for this machine to produce beebread. So another thing what is necessary is a freezer. Ordinary freezer which is used in a household will fit nicely, but most of beekeepers who do it professionally, they use horizontal freezers, and the freezing temperature should be as low as 18 degrees to 20 degrees below zero. So as I marked previously, so most of professional beekeepers use horizontal freezers, but also upright freezers can be used successfully. So another thing what is important for production of beebread is a pollen dryer. Ordinary pollen dryers which are used for pollen production, they fit nicely also for production of beebread. So I will not go into details here. So there are several commercial companies which produce and offer pollen dryers. Another thing which is necessary for production of beebread are sieves. Like in Latvia, many beekeepers who produce a small amount of beebread, they use queen excluders. Queen excluder and the mesh size of queen excluder fits nicely for production of beebread. So, but also, of course, stainless steel sieves can be used with the same mesh size, so no problem. Also, some professional equipment don't use sieves, but instead use air blowers to separate smaller wax particles from grains of beebread. Yeah, it also works nicely, and especially if beekeeper combines both sieving and intense airflow, it could be the best way to clean and to get a really good quality of product. Okay, and also plastic or stainless steel bowls or containers will be necessary for production, but I think that's not a big problem for any beekeeper. And now let's switch to production of beebread, and let's go through the production step by step. So the first step is harvesting, and I suppose the most important question is when to harvest beebread. And so we usually do it in the end of season. In the end of season, from late August till mid of September, and usually we do it simultaneously with preparation of bees for wintering. So we do it quite late, and yeah, there is a critical point. So I know that in Scandinavia you use a long-term formic acid treatment in August. So in Latvia, beekeepers don't do it because we produce beebrød, and there is no way to use formic acid treatment before harvesting of this product. Let's move on. The next step, the second step, is to extract honey. And this is important part, especially for larger scale of beekeepers. There's not much of time, so it's important to extract honey as soon as possible. There's also a critical point. It's important to store frames in a cool and dry place. So it's important to avoid development of wax moose. That's really critical. There's also another point why it's important to extract honey as soon as possible, because as soon as we will extract honey, so actually we will need to give back those frames which will contain beebrød. We need to give back to colonies so that bees can clean those frames. And if weather is too cold, bees definitely will not do it. So in the third step, when extraction is done, so it is necessary to sort frames. So we keep only those frames which contain a sufficient amount of beebrød, and in the next step we are giving back those frames to bees so the bees can clean all these frames. So when we produce beebrød, it is important that those frames they are dry and they don't contain any drops of honey anymore. So they should be dry. So beebrød, it should be absolutely dry. So there are two possibilities how to clean frames. Many beekeepers clean frames. They put all frames with beebrød inside the colony and allow bees to clean those frames. And another option is to especially for larger scale beekeepers, not always they put frames into colonies, but they allow bees to rob those frames in an open area. But definitely that's not a good practice of beekeeping. So as advisor, I would say that it's really better to give those frames for bees and to put those frames into their colony. So in the next step, most of beekeepers who don't have large freezers, they cut out pieces of comb of beebrød, and yeah, they are, as you know, frame and comb of can contain only just a small spot or several spots in a frame. So there's no way to freeze a whole frame. So that's what beekeepers are doing. They are cutting out by knife. They are cutting out only those pieces which contain beebrød. And in the next step, we are putting all those pieces of beebrød and comb of beebrød into freezer. Freezing temperature should be really low. It should be some 18 to 20 degrees below zero or even lower. And freezing time, it should be at least for several days. So it's really necessary to wait while product is deeply frozen. So, but in the practice, actually, most beekeepers keep combs with beebrød in a freezer for, let's say, 4 months or even for 2 months or 3 months. So it depends on beekeeper and possibilities to produce this product. So, and when we have got frozen combs, so in the next step we can use a threshoning machine to separate wax from grains of beebrød. This is a step where we use this beebrød threshoning machine, and it's really good to have facilities which allow to work in a temperature below zero. But if it's not possible, of course, it's also possible to work above in a temperature above 0, but we prefer to work in a temperature below 0. Because if we work in a temperature below 0, so it is easier to produce better quality and cleaner product. So if beekeeper works in a temperature above 0, so actually product will not be so clean. It will be more difficult to get clean product. So basic principle of stationary machine is quite simple. So you have frozen combs. You are just taking those combs through the machine, and it breaks down that comb into smaller pieces, and that's what is happening. Wax is breaking down into very small particles. Meanwhile, grains of beebread will stay intact, and so afterwards it's possible to separate wax from beebrad. So, and in the next step, most of beekeepers use sieves, and they are sieving the products they have got, and most beekeepers use different mesh size of sieves to get a final product. But idea is to separate grains of beebrad from wax particles. There is a critical point, as it's written here. Combination of wind blower and different size of sieves gives really the best result. And in the next step, when we have got these grains of beebrad, so we are drying. We are drying this product. Problem is that actually we can't store this product for a long without drying, and so as I mentioned previously, we use ordinary pollen dryers to dry beebrad, and drying temperature is 35 to 40 degrees above 0, and usually it takes 24 hours, but it could be more or less. So it really depends on pollen dryer, how efficient it is, and also on product, on moisture of product. But there are some critical points. It's really good to control temperature in a pollen dryer. Don't overheat. If you will overheat, product will lose nutritional value. And there's another point: don't overdry. It is really possible to overdry this product. So if you will overdry it, it will get very hard, like a stone, and it will not be tasty at all. So target moisture of the product, if you use this pollen dryer. So target moisture is 6 to 7% in outer layer of the grain, and meantime inside the product moisture will be high. It will be close to 12%. So that is a target moisture. So if we have succeeded with target moisture, so after drying, so we can store it in ordinary temperature, in a temperature, let's say 20-22 degrees above 0, without any problem, and it can be stored for months, for years. So in the final step, so that's a storage. So definitely it is advised to store a product before we are selling product to consumers. It's really advised to store product in a cool and dry place. And here is definitely a critical point. It's important to reduce risk of wax moose. That's how it is. And yeah, here is a nice picture of final product. That's how it looks like. And here's just a few risks I would like to mark. Wax moose. Ordinarily, we are used to say that wax moose, it's not a significant pest of honeybees. But if we produce, and for those beekeepers who produce beebread and also bee pollen, actually wax mousse is of importance. If wax mousse will succeed to lay eggs in a final product, let's say will succeed to lay in a ready-made product eggs, actually if consumers will buy a product and will keep it in a temperature above 14 degrees, so actually in a while they will find a wax larva in a product, and such things happen, and yeah, that's really not nice, and that's something what we don't want. And yeah, I would like to admit that both wax mousse, greater wax mousse and lesser wax mousse are of importance. So both wax mousse are critical for production of bee bread. And also, just to conclude my talk, I would like to mark that there is a risk of contamination of bee bread. So if bees are foraging in intense area of agriculture, there is a risk that actually bee bread will contain some pesticide residues. Unfortunately, that's how it is. So we have analyzed bee bread samples in Latvia, and we know that those beekeepers who produce bee bread in intense agricultural areas, bee bread can contain some pesticide residues. Finally, if beekeeper works in intense agricultural area, and if he wants to avoid residues in a bee bread, so there are only two options. First option is to move bees to another location, to, let's say, to a wild area where bees don't forage on intense farming crops. Another option is to mark frames. So if you don't move bees from intense areas and you really want to produce clean product which doesn't contain pesticide residues, one possibility is to mark frames. So that what we know from biology of bees. Bees don't move bee bread in the nest from one comb, or let's say from one cells to another cells. That's what actually bees are doing with honey. They are used to move honey from one comb to another comb, but bees never move bee bread from one cell to another cell. So there is a way to mark frames, and afterwards, in the end of season, by marking frames, it's possible to sort frames and just to separate those frames which were produced in intense time when intense crops were blooming and bees were foraging on intense farming, intense agricultural cultures. Okay, many thanks for your attention, and I really wish you all success in the production of bee bread. I know that also in Scandinavia, beekeepers now are developing and are switching to production of bee pollen. I really hope that one day also you will do some work with bee bread. Okay, many thanks.
Thanks, Valters. This was a great talk, very exciting, and over the years, I mean, I've been visiting your countries maybe over the last 15 years. At the beginning, I was wondering a lot about this bee bread. Why are you doing this? Uneatable. So it took me some years to understand. Also, over the years, I enjoyed very much that you are really developing different bee products like pollen and propolis as well. So it's very exciting. Already now you inspired it's Ilka suggesting that we should make a study tour to your country, and I already agreed on that. We will make a study tour to your country, so please invite us. So that could be very exciting to go there, maybe 3 days or something like that. And because you have factories, you have quite a lot of different people working on those products.
Yeah, actually, most of professional beekeepers, and not only professional beekeepers, we really own equipment for production of beebrand. And actually, there are no factories which are producing, for example, beebrand. Actually, beebrand is made and produced by beekeepers, by almost every beekeeper.
So it's kind of the beekeeping culture that you make those
Yeah.
products. Yeah, that's great.
But we have really long experience, and actually we have history regarding to different bee products.
I just need to take some of the questions very fast. Maybe it's getting confusing, but it is just so that we don't that I don't miss them. And already now I missed a question. Yeah, maybe we could start from the beginning. Kind of, people are asking about prices all the time. Can you say approximately what is the price of a jar of honey in your country? Normal summer honey. Yeah, just approximately.
Summer honey. Yeah, it depends. Starting from 5 euros per kilo to 10 euros per kilo. But it depends. For example, organic honey it will cost almost 10 euros per kilo.
You say five euro. Yeah, that's done.
Yeah,
So
5 euros
what's the
per kilo.
price for a jar of pollen? Not pollen, not beebread, but pollen. Again, just approximately, and it's not going to be 500 grams. That's maybe 100 grams.
Okay, I know a price of wholesale. It is 7 to 8 euros per
higher
kilo.
price than.
So it's high price in the market, definitely.
Does the price increase for the beebread now? Is that?
Yeah, it's quite stable price, but regarding to price of beebrad, it also varies. But like in a wholesale, price is around 15 euros per kilo. But most of beebrad is sold in a direct trade, and it can be as high as 60 euros per kilo.
60 euros.
60 euros per kilo.
But people in your country, they don't go to a shop, they go to the beekeeper to buy this. That's what.
Yeah, most beebrad is sold in the direct trade.
Have the authorities checking you all the time. Is Marita asking you how do you measure the moisture of beebrad? We have a machine for pollen.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good question. And actually, most beekeepers don't have any mostly that is based on taste of product, and it requires some experience of beekeeper. It is possible to detect moisture of product only in a lab. So I don't know any device which could be used for such a purpose. So actually, yeah, beekeepers do it by taste and by experience. They know that when they dry beebrad, so they taste it while to while, and when it's ready, so they say that's enough. And there's one tricky thing actually when you are drying beebrad. So while it's still warm, so you have temperature 35 to 40 degrees. So actually, when you taste it, it tastes soft. But when you will cool it down, it will get harder. And so there's a point if you will over dry, so you will take a warm product, you will feel that it is still soft, but when it will cool down, actually it will get hard. So there's a point that actually you can over dry it.
It's getting very hard.
Yeah, but we don't use most beekeepers don't use any equipment to measure moisture content.
Hans Erik, he's asking about. So you harvest the beebrad in the autumn, and then now he kind of asked, why don't you do it in the springtime? Because what we can see in our pollen project right now is that the colors are really changing, so it's really different types of. So wouldn't it be a market for spring beebrad or? Yeah.
I will go back to one slide. Okay. Okay, here's a grain of beebrad which is matured, and here's a grain of beebrad which is which is still immature. So the point is, there's really a time while bees can turn bee pollen into beebrad. It can take, I would say, 1 month. It will take weeks up to months. So it's easier to harvest beebread in end of season than in the springtime and in the summertime.
Ripening or something like that. Yeah, finishing it. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Could you find the machineries? There's already a big. You have a picture of different machines for cleaning. There are already questions about prices and which ones you would recommend. You have some slides that you show some machines. Yeah, maybe the next one. Maybe the next one. Yeah, those ones there. They were kind of somebody asked. I think so, the price about the small one up in the where you have your error.
A small one. It cost around 230 euros. 200. Yeah, it's not expensive.
The machine. Yeah, please.
And by the way, just I will add. By the way, Danish company Svinti, they are also selling. They have a cooperation with Villara. That's a Lithuanian company. They are selling also equipment from Villara.
We did buy one as well, so we have one down in the basement. If some of the, if there's somebody out there in the Pollen group that would love to work with beebread, we have a machine that you could borrow if it would be necessary. Tell us a little bit about this Latvian machine, which is the left one, which is kind of home-produced machine in your country. And you demonstrated that for us some years ago.
Yeah, we also used for production of drone people.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. For producing drone brood.
Drone brood, yeah, exactly. So it has, it is made from stainless steel. It has a feeding tray. It's right. So I will, yeah, that's a feeding tray, and down there is a cylinder, and inside the cylinder there is a central axis, which contains several stainless sticks which are spaced in the different directions, and actually it is rotating during the process, and there's nothing sharp inside the cylinder. So actually the point is we don't need a small particles. Actually we only need that frozen combs. They are threshed into smaller pieces. So what is really good for this machine that there's a way to control threshing time, how long time you are threshing the product. So and that is of importance actually.
Okay, there was.
It cost if somebody wants to know. So it cost around 600 euros.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Another question was actually that I think there was one having the question, this cheap machine that you actually can buy at Svinti in Denmark as well, the whole setup there. So is that also sieving the beebread at the same time? So it's a what I call a beebread squeezer, or what you call that, or separator, but does it also kind of sieve the particles away from the beebread? Is it in one in all machine?
It's more manual. It's not very automatic. So, but yes, there are some sieving device under the machine. So, and it separates smaller wax particles from beebread. But it's not very automatic. So don't expect too much from that equipment. So actually this professional equipment you can see. So it costs 2,500 euros. It uses quite intense air blower. It is not using any sieves. Actually, it cleans beebread by intense airflow. Okay. But yeah.
And if you go to the next slide, I think as I remember, no, the next one again. Sorry, maybe one more. Yeah, you have the nicest sieve is actually a queen excluder. Isn't that what you told us?
Most beekeepers use queen excluder. But actually that's not the point. So it's possible to use a stainless steel sieve which has the same mesh size, and it works nicely. Okay.
So now that I think that was, if everybody feel out there that I didn't ask the question, please rewrite it to me again. I would really like to talk about how to digest. That's the reason why you do that is that it's fermented and it's easier for humans to digest that. Tell us something about pollen. How are we able to? We have fresh pollen, we have dry pollen. How much do we digest as human beings?
I don't know, Fleming. I don't have an answer to your
fair
question.
Answer, no problem. Yeah.
Regarding to beebread, I just want to add, perhaps it's interesting for listeners. It is possible to produce from 0.2 to 2 kilos per colony. So, if price of product is, let's say, 60 euros per kilo, so it can be more than 100 euros per kilo per
So
colony.
how much did you say per colony? How much per colony per year?
Starting from 0.2 to 2
Okay.
kilos per colony, it's possible to produce a product.
Yeah, that's a lot. And another question I have for you is really, I like this beebread thing. But if you have the beebread, and you will have that very often in brood frames,
Yeah.
so there will be some left over from, you could say, for the bees, from the cocoons and so on. Is that a problem? No problem.
No, that's not a problem. So, yeah, sometimes it's really difficult to harvest beebread in autumn time, especially if actually autumn is quite warm and bees are still producing new generations. They are rearing brood, so actually quite a lot of beebread is stored very close to brood.
Yeah.
So not always it's possible to harvest all beebread.
And then we have, I kind of put a taste scale, because I mean, right now we're working with pollen, and I have to say fresh pollen is very delicious. Dried pollen is different. I wouldn't say it's delicious. It's dry. So how would you put the beebread on the scale? Is it a very delicious thing? Is it? I probably have tried it, but I don't really remember the taste. How is it the taste? Is it a good taste? Is it?
It's definitely a specific taste.
Right. Nice. That's a nice political
Definitely,
answer.
it's specific taste, and I will say that actually people they need to use the product. It's really specific taste, and I will say honestly that my own first experience with beebread, it was not very nice. I didn't like it, but yeah, now I'm experienced with beebread already for many years, and I'm consuming also it by myself. So I love it. I really love it. I even love the taste of beebread. So, but you mentioned that there is a difference between fresh pollen and dry pollen. That's the same with beebread. So fresh beebread, it will taste differently than dry beebread. So, and actually many consumers also say that they really love freeze product. So dried product, it's easy to sell.
It's better than you can.
Yeah, it's definitely better.
So Ilka is asking us here. I mean, if you render a colony, to put another way, I mean, if you render a colony, there will be frames with beebread in them. So you could say that's really beebread from last year. So is this a problem that you build up your colony, and then there's still beebread from last year, and then you harvest it at the end of the season? Is that problematic, or it doesn't matter?
Yeah, I catch the point, but in practical beekeeping, I think that no one takes care of that, and that's not a big problem. I don't see a big problem from such point of view.
Okay. And then another question is actually that now you have all those nice machineries with the dryers. You can go to the dryers. And it's really a personal question, because in the Danish pollen project there, we are going to buy 1 or 2 or 3 dryers. Which one should we buy? Which one do you recommend? Which one is the best on the market? Or maybe you just took some pictures here. It's
No. Okay, I will say my own experience, and quite many beekeepers in Latvia, they have a product which is produced by weBInar. Yeah, and I can just give feedback that it works nicely, and we don't see a problem with weBInar. So, but I think it's not a problem also with Lyson product and also Lega product. So I think that's not so so critical. But most beekeepers in Latvia, yeah, they use weLara product.
Okay, we're getting to the end of the talk. I give the possibility. There was lots of nice questions. Is there still any questions out there? One of the questions I would really put is, should we start working on that in Denmark as well? Right now we're focusing on the pollen and the dry pollen, and that's plenty in my life right at the moment, but maybe we should start really working on this product. Do you have any impression the total amount of, is it every beekeeper is producing that kind of?
No, not every. Definitely not every, but most beekeepers produce beebrød in Latvia.
Yeah.
Most of.
I can see Henrik, he's typing in a question right at the moment, so maybe we should give him a second. Or maybe he disappeared now. Yeah, okay, he disappeared. Okay, Henrik, he says, thanks a lot. It was a very exciting talk that you made here, and I really agree on that. Thanks a lot, and hope that we will make this excursion to your country to meet beekeepers in your country, meet you there, and learn and see. We would really like to know more about bee products, pollen, propolis, and now beebrød as well. So thank you very much.
Yeah, many thanks to you, and you are really welcome to Latvia. So if you really want, please write to me, and we'll organize a visit in Latvia.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks so much.